A good evening, precious Sangha. I am so grateful to be present with you this evening. And it is evening here in Coast Miwok territory in the Ohlone lands. 10,000, 20,000, many thousands of years of ancestry. At the gate to San Francisco State, Melissa Nelson trained and taught for so many years, our dear Dharma sister and indigenous leader, Melissa Nelson. It says, we are still here, Coast Miwok people reminding us we are still here. And tonight I'm thinking and feeling, given where we are in the season and time of the depth of that statement, we are still here. We are still here. It's an adamant statement of continuous presence and teaching and inhabitation and life force. But also, we are still, and we are here. And may it be so this evening, this extraordinary evening, we find ourselves at the cross holy day between an exact midpoint between the fall equinox, the autumnal equinox, and the winter solstice. This is the midpoint, and actually the beginning of the ancient Celtic year, both the oldest day of the year and also new life. And we know from the many of us who've been practicing fully and wholeheartedly, being together with these 50 chaplains, leaders, the 14th cohort of Upaya Zen Center, the chaplaincy program beginning, back in, I believe it was 2008, if not before, and 14 extraordinary cohorts of individuals have gone forth into the world, making the chaplain's vow from the 4th century. Saint Martin de Tours coming into the gate of his city, seeing an unhoused person, a lonely person, a stranger sitting at the gate. He ripped his cloak in half and gave half of his cloak to the one sitting there in the gate and wrapped himself in the other half, vowing to let his bewilderment be increased and go forth and care for the human and more than human world. Chaplain's vows tonight to both train as hospice workers for a dying culture and also as midwives for a new life coming forward. And what a beautiful teaching from William Keepan to train, to have a double balance tonight. Gratitude to the many beings who are engaged in deep sitting and also full-on activism, as the chaplains are doing, serving, coming alongside where need is great, and being willing to stay present with heavy grace and do the work of these times. So I'm feeling a huge amount of gratitude, and also thinking, last night, All Hallows Eve, 2 nights ago, Halloween, and last night, November 1st. These are 3 traditional holy days wrapped in together. So All Hallows Eve on October 31st, and then All Saints Day, and today All Souls Day. And we say this is the day, these are the days, in a way, days of awe, the oldest days when ancestors, the blessed dead, come up out of the earth and come back to remind us of our coexistent life, our continuous life and death together, midwives and hospice workers. And this evening, I would like to dedicate this talk to one of my oldest Dharma sisters in our Zen community here at San Francisco Zen Center, and extending out Layla Smith Bockhorst, whom I met in 1973. We practiced shoulder to shoulder together since that time, so almost 50 years. Our children were born together within 3 months of each other. She was ordained by Zoketsu Norman Fisher, received Dharma transmission from Zoketsu Norman Fisher, and priest ordination from Zentatsu Richard Baker. We've practiced indespicably closely, and tonight she is at the edge of entering into the great mystery. yielding to lung and liver cancer. And we are gathering tonight, gathering at her bedside to keep her company. So I'm holding her close and deep in my heart and in the hearts of the many who are listening. Gratitude and just gratitude to Layla Buckhorst for her many years, to her daughter and grandchildren, to her husband, to her partner, and to all of the practitioners who are close, and gratitude to Mountain Source Sangha also coming very close by. And today, thinking of her, I also had the deep pleasure of holding our miraculous 2-month-old grandchild, our grandson, looking down into his eyes and realizing, close to 380,000 babies are born every day, 140 million new lives a year, and looking at this young, nursed, fresh baby and feeling the continuum of new life and the great mystery of passing. Historically, writes Arundhati Roy, historically, pandemics force human beings to break with the past and merge their world anew. And this one is no different. This pandemic, this being time, is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. I think beginning last Saturday, when we gathered for a full day of practice with the chaplains, and Konda Mason welcomed us, she and her friend Mackie, talking about belonging, to actually settle into the time that we're living in now, and encouraging us as chaplains, as practitioners, as engaged Buddhist, Dharma dedicated family, to encouraging us to find our ease and our true home, to ground, to sink down into this, at this crossroads between worlds, the dead coming up out of the earth, remembering of us of their constant presence within our own bodies and mind, and new life coming forward in this beautiful coming and going, to find our place and to hold deep and strong. Southerners on new ground, an ancestral journey, engaging moral imagination and finding a way to meet and to do the deep work of planting life and growing justice in unjust and withering times. So gratitude to the practitioners and the teachers that set the stage for this cohort, for cohort 14. In the beginning, Konda and Mackie, spending and closing our time together by returning to Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings of evoking the Bodhisattva's names and calling ourselves, calling true presence up from remembering the Bodhisattvas, Avalokiteshvara, the one who is willing to listen to the cries of the world, and Manjushri, unafraid to face, to look deeply, reminding us to develop that quality, to listen to what is said and unsaid, to look deeply at the source of life and death and trouble, good trouble and wicked trouble. And then to take the same spirit as Samantabhadra Bodhisattva and to get up and serve again and again, lifetime after lifetime, beneficial service, beneficial, reaching out. And then taking the stand of Shtigarbha or Jizo Bodhisattva, being willing to go down into hell together and coming forth. And so I feel the gravity of that call in these times. And I'm thinking and remembering how important it is for us to return to a culture of awareness. Today, Melissa Nelson reminded me this morning, this is the beginning of Native American Heritage Month, a time when we celebrate the gifts of the harvest. And behind me on this table, the some of the fruits of the harvest of our work and our practice, and really looking deeply at the intertwined life of Dharma and ecology. So gratitude, of course, and always to Roshi Joan and to Upaya Zen Center, and to helping us understand again and again and again what real culture is, not a ghost. So I particularly appreciated reading through the letters and teachings posted on the Upaya website most recently, and in particular about Roshi Joan's visit to His Holiness the Dalai Lama to serve not just as a facilitator of a conversation of the Mind and Life Institute, but as Thich Nhat Hanh used to love to say, a felicitator, one who brings joy, even though we know the facts and the dangerous facts. So reminding us again in the teaching of the cultural anthropologist, Dr. Joe Henrich, we're a cultural species. And genetically, we are evolved to learn from each other and from the natural world, the so-called natural world. Culture makes us human. It arises from learning from one another and connects us in every way. And I am really feeling this today. So the whole training now with cohort 14 has been a cultural experience. And of course, I go back and dig into the roots of the word. And I think culture, I know culture has two roots: koleri, to worship, to respect, to turn and to take care of. But its older root is quell, from the Greek and the Latin and old European English, to revolve around a center and to keep that center empty so that the wheel of practice can turn. Not to hold on to any one idea, but to be willing again and again to be refreshed and surprised as we go forward, to turn the wheel of the law. I think of one of my favorite haiku from Basho, where he says, "The white bait opens its black eye in the net of the law." The white bait opens a black eye in the net of the law. So bringing together light and dark, opening the eye in the net of the law, and finding what it means to create real culture, not a ghost. 4 billion years of evolution from microbial ancestors. So to drop down, empty at the center, and turn the wheel of practice. You know, on the roofs of so many Buddhist temples, there's an 8-spoked wheel reminding us to turn the wheel clockwise, and then turn it backwards, counterclockwise. And beware, because even though the image of the wheel is very powerful, turning on an empty center, a wheel that hits the ground and is too sure of where it's going leaves quite a rut in the soft ground. So our practice calls us, Dharma and Ecology practice calls us to turn the wheel and not get caught in a rut, to begin again and again, hopefully, but with wise hope, as we heard today from Roshi Joan, Rebecca Solnit, and Valerie Brown in their dialogue, looking at hope and wise hope. So I want to stay very close to my own experience of Dharma and ecology, and to go back to the root of Dharma, farm, firmament, to uphold Dharma and farm, share their meaning. Our life force in meditation practice is to uphold the mystery of practice, and also to be refreshed, renewed, and undone by that mystery. And for me, this work takes place in the living ground of the so-called natural world, which beautifully reminded from Chris's teaching during the cohort on Saturday, reminding us that earth, air, water, fire, and space, the 4 of these elements return to their own nature when we remember that we are never separate from elemental earth, elemental fire, elemental water, and of course, breath, renewing air at the same time, revivified at every moment from the elemental world. And I'm feeling that tonight as my dear friend draws close to her last breath. It takes 500 years to create a simple inch of fertile ground, a simple inch of soil. And we know more about, as Leonardo da Vinci reminds us, we know more about the firmament above us and the stars and the celestial beings than we know about what we're actually made of, the ground that we come from. And I think as a gardener, I think soil, earth, soil in particular has two roots. Fertility, just like a rough and rich sow, ready to nurture all of her little piglets, but also the other root, a more ancient root for soil and earth and ground, is to sit still on the throne of the living ground, on the bones of what has been and what is to come, and be renewed and create new life, fresh, without any interruption. So I'm feeling that very much tonight. I have a bowl of predictably, but also fresh compost. There's an incense for Layla blowing and growing and burning. And this compost, we went out and gathered compost from our pile where there are truly hundreds of pumpkins decomposing right now. Not only the beautiful pumpkins on our altar, but the pumpkins that have been discarded as decorations, but pumpkins, squash, one of the eldest sisters of the three sister kinship, corn, beans, and squash. Squash is the eldest, protecting the ground and encouraging us, hidden seeds inside, encouraging us to be renewed, to split open and grow, even though we'd rather hide and decay. Right now, hundreds of pumpkins decomposing in our compost pile and making this mysterious soil. 500 years, though, until it is fully ready. I'll put it back here on the ground. So I keep that on the altar just to remember, to try to remember where I come from. Radical disorder is key to the function of decomposed soil. At the molecular level, it may be the most disordered material on Earth. No two molecules of compost or decayed soil are ever alike. This material works on fractal principles, producing a vast array of different manifestations at different scales. In the living ground, similarity is rampant and identity is non-existent. So could we remember to actually get down to business, to enter backwards through the garden gate and come fresh to Dharma and Ecology, come fresh to the work of chaplaincy in troubled times, come fresh to the voting booths or the voting documents, come fresh to the borderlands, come fresh to the edge of the world, and be both decomposed and recombined. All conditioned nature, taught the Buddha, is of a nature to come apart and be recombined, to out fresh. So Dharma and Ecology does not work on a linear straight line trajectory, but in a great circle. You know, and in the public schools, for many years in the public schools at the Edible Schoolyard, we thought, how do we convey the real principles of what it means to be a human being and a cultural being in these times? How do we do this with 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old young people? And so we had many, many meetings with all kinds of teachers and cohorts of children. And finally, we came up with 3 basic principles. And I think that they are beautiful Dharma and Ecology principles that matter cycles in a big circle. So again, there's the wheel, no tread, no flat rut. But matter is cycling, it meaning coming apart and recombining at every moment, and 500 years for a single handful of fertile soil to be formed. But matter cycles. the great cycle of change and growth, and not knowing, coming into knowing a little bit and then having it decompose and be fresh. So matter cycles and energy flows, and life exists in a web. So these gestures became a mantra, or became the mudra for young people. And I thought these are primary teachings, Buddhist world as well, and feeling them very strongly tonight. The great cycling of matter, being willing to see our old hopefulness or our old despair come apart and be recombined and recycled, to cycle, to recycle, to turn, not get caught in a rut, to be fresh, and to keep everything open in the middle so that the wheel can move, so the axle of the wheel can go forward and the wheel can turn. And this wonderful gesture, wisdom and compassion together in the presence of awakening Buddha, awakening Dharma, upholding farm, Dharma, soil, and community. This gesture, all right. Buddha, wisdom, compassion, awakening, strong teaching, and community. Beautiful gesture. So don't hesitate to make this sign. Matter cycles, energy flows, KO to flow, chemistry to flow, to always change, to be ever moving. And life exists in a web work. Imagine, if you will, this from Roshi Jones' Dharma brother, Daido Lori. Imagine, if you will, a universe in which all things have a mutual identity. They all have a codependent origination, so that when one thing arises, all things arise simultaneously. And everything has mutual causality. What happens to one thing happens to the entire universe. Can we imagine a universe today at the edge of the dark and the light, at the crossroads between the old year and the new year, without binary bonding or boundaries? Can we drop down? The bottom of the mind is paved with the crossroads. Can we imagine a universe that is self-creating, self-maintaining, and self-defining? A universe or a culture of universe in which all parts and the totality are a single entity, and all of the pieces and the whole thing at once are one great thing. And if this is too grand for you, too abstract, I'm sorry. For me, it's vividly, dangerously useful. I want to dig down with this kind of intelligence, not the kind that tries to go in a straight line. I want to dig down with kinship, kin-centric ecology, an ecology that depends on recognizing all beings in the 10 directions as living kin, and recognizing that in our suffering, we are united in kindred connectedness, and willing to not know what to do, and yet to bear witness again and again, and to get down together and get to work, to try to build and grow a sustainable and remarkable and emergent culture. This is not, I am not speaking in metaphor, not even in simile. This is real work, not a ghost. And the work of our times, and very much the work of tonight and the work of the harvest season. So I want to acknowledge that out of broken open ground, that radical disorder, where disorder is everywhere and similarity is non-existent, each atom, each molecule of compost is unique, a non-repeatable universe. Out of this mysterious matrix, beautiful food grows. Behind me on the altar, 3 kinds of corn, the Seneca corn of the keepers of the Western door. And in a moment, Noah's going to put up some pictures. So to make the story of real food more graphically true, and to really honor real food, not a ghost, and the nourishment that it takes for all of us to taste earth, air, water, fire, and space combining to make this mystery of kincentric Dharma and ecology. Earth, air, water, fire, and space combining to make food, and numberless beings giving their life and labor that we may eat, and maybe we be nourished that we may nourish life. So on the altar behind me, 3 kinds of corn, actually 4 kinds of corn. In a moment, you'll show you pictures and say a little bit more. And this is a harvest that we've planted together, both at Upaya Zen Center and also at Heron Shadow, which is a Native American farm on the outskirts of up in the northern part of Sonoma County, and also Ohlone and Native American territory, very much so. The Federated Indians of Great Rancheria. Old land, growing new corn. So growing food that is connected to the people that are meant to eat it and to taste it and to protect and preserve the seeds of continuous culture. So you see this beautiful buffalo squash there on the altar, and also the candy roaster, which is one of the sweetest squashes on earth. And we did grow it at Upaya Zen Center. This year it was tiny. Here in the Bay Area, they're honking big and huge. The really big ones are out in the entryway. I didn't bring them in. They're shamefully huge. They're bigger than the table. Sanfiacre there, made out of clay, guarding the harvest. A trowel from Roshi Joan. Beautiful corn from Japan, squash from Japan. And all these different offerings there with the soil and the light and the fire and a healthy skeleton or 2 dancing around to remind us. Bonfire, oh yeah, bonfire. Fire made of bones to dissolve bones. Chaplains should remember that the bonfire that we gather around in this season is to burn bones down into ash so that we can live again. So let's look at some of these crops up a little closer on the screen, just so you can have a sense of what's been growing and what's been harvested. And then I'd like to close with some reminders from Joanna Macy. So let's go ahead and
which set do you want to look at? You
let's
sent me
see,
2 sets.
Let's start with whichever one you start with, I'll follow up with.
Okay.
Good. So this is perfect. So we're beginning with Upaya. Here's Roshi Joan and Roxanne Swentzell. And this year, when we began the Planting Life and training, we made a pilgrimage to visit Roxanne and her at the edge of Santa Clara Pueblo in her uncle, Michael Naranjo's extraordinary place. And we began by bringing gifts from Upaya Zen Center. So let's go to the next picture. Here's Roche. So this is, well, we're looking first at Roxanne's hearth. And no, if you can drop down to the table at Upaya and the gifts that we prepared there, I see that there we are. So it is traditional when you're growing traditional crops from the Native American community. It is traditional to return the seed to those who are the original keepers of the seed, to rematriate the crop. So here we are last June in the kitchen at Upaya House, gathered around the harvest. You see on the table the dark blue, Tewa blue corn of the Tewa world, which was originally a gift from Santa Clara Pueblo through Española, and one of the first chaplains in the chaplaincy program, Emily Baker, bringing that seed back. And this year we were able to rematriate and return a huge amount of this beautiful corn. And our intention is all the dark blue indigo corn that Noah was talking about earlier, all of that corn will be returned as next year as a gift to Roxanne Swentzell and to Santa Clara Pueblo and Flowering Tree Permaculture, one of the oldest permaculture, Native American permaculture. Can't even talk when I see that corn. And that takes a lot to stop my mouth. But they're the dark blue indigo corn of the Tewa world, braided by Upaya residents and respectfully offered back to Roxanne. So we made a pilgrimage to visit Roxanne and brought her gifts from Upaya Zen Center before we planted the garden. And let's just see, Noah, if there's other pictures. I think that's sufficient for Upaya. We could certainly show Roxanne's hearth, which is the second picture right underneath she. And yeah, let's see. There's also, there we are. Actually, Roxanne is sharing. Here's her right there in her uncle's house. And then if we go back to the photograph you just showed, it is traditional to, and in particular right now, that picture of Roshi and Roxanne and all the, yeah, see, I know it's up. We're going to go back to those old guys in a minute. I'm sorry, everybody.
Sorry. Wendy, there's some
There we
delay.
go.
Which picture do you want to go to?
Braid, under the corn braid. Ooh. Yeah. So when we brought this gift back to Roxanne, she had crafted these beautiful seed vessels. And here she is preparing a vessel she entrusted to Roshi and to Upaya, and invited us to put the seed of the harvest from next season and to ceremoniously bury that seed with a pledge to continue to grow the crops of antiquity and be sure to preserve and return the seed to the original growers. So here we are receiving this pot from Roxanne. We get to see her preparing it and passing it on to us. So then let's go, Noah, let's go to, we'll go picture of the field right above the, yes, that's right. So here we are at Green Gulch Farm, where we've celebrated for the last, let's see, 2008, last almost 10 years, growing Oneo white corn, the sacred white corn of the Seneca world. The seed was originally brought to us by Wendy and David Bray. Here they are, knowledge keepers from the Seneca Nation, and they visited us this year. Came to Green Gulch. Green Gulch is too foggy a place to grow the corn, but we've been able to grow it at Heron Shadow and also beautifully at Indian Valley in northern, a little bit north and hotter country. So we've grown hundreds of pounds of their ancestral corn, and they came this year to offer a braid and blessing and teachings. And there's a beautiful picture of the three old guys. If you can go to that one, yes. Here we go. There's my husband, farmer, there on the left, Peter Rudnick, and Amadeo Banducci, who's in his late 80s, Italian farming, David Ray and Dave, showing them the corn. They're showing David the potatoes that we've been growing. Amadeo growing for many years, growing so many different crops. In a moment, we'll see those potatoes. I just love this picture of these three men meeting, three farmers meeting across the distance in the core of our home and celebrating the gift of growing good food and real culture and sharing the taste. This morning, eating some of this roasted corn to begin the day of keepers of the Wood and the Shoney tradition of growing this beautiful food. So I wanted you to see that. I think we can go to the next set and look and see what's at Heron Shadow. So this is Maya Harjo. she is a native farmer, growing up in a blend of traditions. Particularly, her ancestors are both from Los Angeles and from Oklahoma. And the corn she's holding is the Quapaw corn, which has gone out of cultivation. And Maya received a handful of seed of this corn last year and sowed it at Heron Shadow. And this year, we've harvested bushels after bushels after bushels of this beautiful corn, which hasn't been grown for generations. And she has rematriated it to her family and to the Native community, both in Oklahoma and also in Los Angeles. Beautiful corn. And then if we can look in a little bit closer, Kodo, yes. So you can see the red corn of her people. Again, it hasn't been grown for close to 40 years. And young farmers growing and bringing back this corn, this cultural story, again and again. And then we'll look at the buffalo squash, the buffalo field squash, right here. That's the very squash that's on the altar here with its curved neck. It was a gift. And there's, you can see a little candy roaster squash from the Cherokee Nation, and underneath other indigenous squashes. And all the squash grown at Upaya this year were both either from Japan or directly from the native community, including the beautiful green Hubbard squash from Taos Pueblo. But here we are in Northern California, and I'd love you to see a redbird, Ed Willie, who's one of the teachers there at Heron Shadow holding. He's struggling. These are really heavy squash. Yeah. And then the amaranth, just to look at some of the crops that are being grown. So this is primary beloved teacher, Ed Willie, who's a redbird, also growing all different varieties of amaranth, 18% protein, and all of the seed and food is being returned in every week, returned to the Native community. Thousands of pounds of food this year from this garden. Love you to see the ring of polenta corn too, which is, yes. So I want you to, I'll hold it up. This is corn from Italy that also young farmers have been growing. Our friend Jake, who helped to establish Indian Valley Farm, he's involved now in a full project to bring back this ancient corn, which is the source of delicious and original polenta from Italy. And this corn is being shared warm hand to warm hand with hundreds of us. So here's a spiral ring of corn of antiquity being rematriated both to Italy and across this country. And then dropping down to the potatoes, please, Kodo. Yes. So this is the Makah Ozette potato from the Makah Nation in northwestern Washington, a potato that was brought to the northwestern part, the most northwestern part of continental United States, so-called United States, to the Makah people. And this potato has been kept and grown since the 1800s, when they received it from Spaniards who offered it as a gift and then found the area much too cold and inhospitable to grow. So this is an original potato from the New World that has not traveled through Europe. That means that there's been no exposure to blight or any disease. So this is a primary food on the Ark of Taste, a protected potato. And we were this year able to grow 150 foot long row of the Ozette potato, and every single potato was returned to both to Heron Shadow, and then Heron Shadow will make a pilgrimage to the Makah Nation and return potatoes grown here in good Coast Miwok and Ohlone territory will be returned to the cultural kinship first people that have grown and depended on this food. One of their 5 villages is named Ozette for the Ozette potato. So this is an ancestral potato, and my husband is really good at growing this potato and sharing it. So we dug up 150 feet of the potato, maybe 40 boxes full of potatoes to be shared with within the indigenous community. And then last of all, thank you. While we were working and celebrating the harvest, after a long day together, In the field, this bobcat appeared. And Redbird said he had never seen a bobcat come so close. And it stopped and looked directly at us with those extraordinary eyes. Tail lifted, paw ready, afraid, and ready for the next iteration and next expression of real culture. So it seemed, what an auspicious moment to have this creature come and be with us in the field as the harvest was complete. And right before we disbanded for a great feast, the last gift in the Zen fields, far beyond form and emptiness, formless field, far beyond form and emptiness, bobcat wandering through, reminding us it's not only about human beings, there's a more than human will here too. So thank you. I wanted you to see these pictures and to be to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teaching in this work. So Dharma and ecology are intertwined for the long haul. And we are actively and wisely hopeful, although we know the facts. From this closing, from this morning's teaching, reminding us that to be creating culture, to be nourished by traditional ecological knowledge and the cultures of antiquity, persistent culture, to be nourished by the earth, air, water, fire, and space, and to rematriate, to be generous by returning these gifts to the source. We're creating a kind of resistance going against the stream. And as Roshi reminded us this morning, hope is a mode of resistance, quoting from Barbara Kingsolver, active hope, rooted in our vows, upholding on the ground, not turning away from suffering, not being maudlin and despairing, not being happy and joyful and stupidly hopeful when there's no real reason to celebrate except that we have the opportunity to create and find new culture. And Rebecca Solnit encouraging us, reminding us the spacious presence of not knowing what's next. And nothing produces its own intrinsic existence because all existence is relational. And hope is a verb. Hope is a discipline. We have to practice it for it to be real. And gratitude to Valerie Brown for reminding us to settle down and really investigate hope in all of its guises, to take the time to find interbeing. We're an old species, and what's most important, as Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, is to hear the sound of the earth crying in us and reminding us to wake up and be present for the harvest, to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teaching. So gratitude to Upaya Zen Center, and beginning with gratitude and ending with gratitude for the teaching, for being alive in dangerous times. Gratitude for the life of practitioners, gratitude for patch-robed monks and monkesses willing to be alive, to be born and to die together. To be cloud and water wanderers. Gratitude to practitioners like Layla Smith Bockhorst and all the named and unnamed beings in the 10 directions with whom we create a culture of commitment and engagement and solid dedication to upright sitting and getting up and serving. So I thank you, Upaya, beloved ones. I look forward to joining you in the winter for the winter practice period. Thank you, Kodo, and congratulations to you and Kozan on receiving Dharma transmission and continuing the lineage and not leaving any rut in the road. No trace. It's the circle of the way.
Hoshi Wendy, deepest thanks. I miss you, and I'm so happy we'll have winter practice period together. And thank you for your extraordinary teachings, bringing us back to earth where we can be good citizens, loving this earth and each other and all beings.
Thank you very much. Now we get to
Wendy,
chant
thank you so
together.
much. Yes, we will chant the 4 vows. But I just want to say that you're dangerous. You make it sound so exactly as it is. And then it's so easy to forget. But thank you for pointing us back to the essence.